Innovation is in our veins. Soon the whole world will know our names. Sharing our knowledge and freedom reign. We here for the people, you know it's our way. Setting foundations is part of the dream. It doesn't matter if you're new to the game. Listen up now, cause we all gon' say, elevate, 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 higher, elevate, 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 higher. We gon' rise up, we all gon' shine. Work through adversity, stay on the grind. Elevate, elevate, this is our time. Elevate, elevate.
Well, that certainly didn't work out too well. Grateful to be on with you other than AMA Live here with Reg Arnold. No, nothing crazy, nothing serious. We're just here to have some good old-fashioned fun. Happy to have you, Reg. How you feeling, big dog?
I'm feeling under the weather.
Not under the weather.
Oh man, bad. I was telling a friend of ours, friend of the show, he'd messaged me and he was like, "Oh, I was looking forward to seeing you on the Tuesday episode," and I was like, "Yeah, me too." Like, unfortunately, there's been something going around. I said my daughter caught it, now I caught it, and I said yesterday I had a fever so high I was tasting sound and smelling color. So happy to actually feel a little bit better and to come on and chat with everybody.
Yeah, no kidding. That's crazy, man. That sounds terrible. So I'm sorry that you had to go through that. But yeah, I it's so funny. I was like, when we're getting the show sorted for today, I'm like feeling so much pressure. I'm like, oh, I gotta get these notes set up. And I'm like, well, wait a second. I just gotta show up and be myself for this one. This is great. No notes, no nothing. Let's talk about everything. It's awesome. Especially for me, like, you know, politics, that's what y'all have come here to be entertained by or edutained by with us. But we have other interests. We like doing other things. I like sports. Love the NFL. Can't wait for the Super Bowl. You know, Chiefs going for a three-peat. We'll see what happens. I was hoping for a Josh Allen, pull that one out, but it didn't happen. Too bad. So sad. And as well, really pumped about, I love wrestling. Wrestling is awesome. Love wrestling. It's great. We love to see it. Reg makes fun of me, even though he did violin as a kid, so stop making fun of me. We all have our vices. So these are the things that we did, and these are the things that we're interested in. So how you feeling, Reg?
Wrong. Incorrect.
Sorry,
fake news,
fiddle.
Misinformation. Man, I played the piano and the guitar.
What I love doing the most is I love trolling you. It's the best. So
fair enough.
But man, we are you.
Oh, the information is correct.
Yeah, dude. I mean, hey,
make the joke, make it correct.
You know, sometimes it's just good to trigger people. That's how we do it. It's what we do best out here. This is why if at any point I had the amazing chance or opportunity to do a live stream with Rachel Gilmore, it would be a lot of fun and hilarious. I'm sure to push buttons. That's what we do. We push buttons. So it'd be a lot of fun.
Well, no, she might be up the creek right now because I mean she's got a lawsuit that's pending right now because of some things she said. So I'm just like, yeah, the queen of misinformation, you know, calling everybody out, saying that they're telling falsehoods. It's looking pretty good on you, honestly. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing, right? And so we got a lot of people strolling in right now. So grateful to have the chats popping right at the moment. But you know what? Oh shoot, I got thrown off. I looked at the YouTube stream and I forgot that it's like 15 seconds delayed. So I saw that you were trying to talk and it wasn't actually you. It's weird. Anyways, let's go to some chats here. Let's go to some chats. So if I can pull it up, that would be nice. So actually there's someone you're gonna love this one, Reg. Someone was asking if we could cover more Nova Scotia news, more Nova Scotia politics.
Yeah, I love that. The problem is that we just don't have a big Nova Scotia following. I know that we're based here and we're very plugged into it, and I honestly would love to, but we just don't really have the base for it. So if you want to see more of that, maybe tell people locally to give us a listen, and we can, cover that more. Yeah, I would love to cover things more locally. It's just like I said, it's just where our base is at.
Yep, 100%. Well, that was the thing. That's actually how this show started. We started in local Nova Scotia news, mainly because of TikTok. And then we started branching out more and more and more. And then more people from across Canada started listening to us. And before we know it, we actually believe it or not, Reg, want to hear something crazy? We only cover Canadian politics now, but 80% of our audience is from Canada. 20% is from the States. And I'm like, what 20% is tuning in regularly to listen to us talk about politics? I don't know. That's kind of crazy to me. But I was told Americans don't like Canada and hate Canada. So that's kind of cool to hear.
I don't think that. I mean, you got your wife who's American. I've got a good friend of mine. He's American. And I think there's a lot of, Canadians of the States that probably want to just keep in touch and keep an eye on the gong show or dumpster fire or whatever you want to call it that is Canada right now. So maybe to kind of solidify the reason why they moved, or
True.
or just to point and laugh, or to feel sorry. I don't know which one it is, but all three.
That's fair. I'm gonna throw this to the chat right now. Is anybody else seeing Reg like leg out like crazy, or is this just me? Because I'm like getting insecure about this. So I'd be chat, light that up. I'll be curious because I'm catching like every third word from Reg, and it's only because I know you so well that I'm able to respond. I'm like, okay, I think I know exactly where he's going with this. So we're going from there. But it's Five Pines said Spotify made it seem like you were part of Rebel News, which isn't the first time we've received this. I've received this multiple times that people think we're part of Rebel News.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting?
That's interesting because like I've been famously saying on the show before that I'm not a fan of Rebel News. So that's funny.
Yeah, man. People come for your neck every time you said that.
Oh no.
Dude, yeah, people love the Rebel News, and I understand. They serve a purpose. What can I say? They do some fun stuff, especially after I got a chance to talk to Alexandra Lavoie, and I'm like, admittedly, like I can see why she's successful, because dang, like she goes to the throat. So hearing her stories and talking to her was pretty fun. But yeah, so it isn't nice to hear that people think is like it was, as Five Pines said, was it was nice to hear that we were independent and not part of Rebel News. So I was like, okay, fair enough. Do I give off the Rebel News vibe? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how that all works. But oh yeah, they're saying you're lagging hard time.
No, I just wasn't saying. No, there was a comment that I received the other day that was just like, I really appreciate it when Reg is on the show to kind of keep Josh's emotions in check, but we really need Josh to kind of like be there to keep Reg energized. And I was like, oh, nice. It kind of it shows we're a good balance.
Yeah, 100%, man. That is the yin and the yang, isn't it? It is. I've had multiple comments made to me directly that they see a difference from like the solo shows to when we're in studio together. And all of a sudden, like when you're here with me across the table, and I lost Reg. I'm going double mode right now. Holy smokes. Love to see it. Let's ignore that. So, right, we lost Reg, so it's just us right now. So right now, I'll shout out Christian, $5. Appreciate the shout out. Appreciate the super chat. Means the world to me. You guys are more polished than Rebel News. Well, thanks, Thomas. Appreciate it. Appreciate the love. We'll see when we get Reg back here. That'll be fascinating to get him back here eventually. But yeah, so that was kind of more so the question I was having. Like, yeah, people think we were Rebel News, and trying to figure out what our vibe is. And I do appreciate Thomas. I do know what you mean by it feels like we're more polished, because like a lot of them, they almost feel like they record directly from like a Google stream or a Google Meet stream. in sometimes. But like Ezra's work when he's in studio is like camera work is fantastic. So it is interesting. I don't know how we got that vibe, but no, we got Reg back here. Let's go, big dog.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh, I'm going through every other screen. That's not you. There you are. Hey, you're back.
Am I still lagging out pretty hard?
Oh, you're a bit better now. This is good.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
The computer crashed and I had to restart it.
Oh, maybe it was just the computer needing some love.
Yeah, apparently. It's that okay. I don't know if anybody else uses Adobe Creative Cloud, but don't. It's like freaking worse. Ever since I installed it, I've had nothing but problems.
Right.
So I ended Creative Cloud like 2 seconds ago, and then the whole computer crashed. I was like, cool.
There it is. That was the issue. I want to throw this one out because this one's hilarious. Scarlet Bones says that Reg needs some sunlight.
Yeah. Okay. So fair enough.
The white sweater's not doing any favors. That's the
white
issue.
sweater's not doing any good. Also been super sick, and then third off, the lighting is just bad in this room. It's my office, and yeah, I've got nothing but fluorescent lights in here, so it's bad.
Okay, true. I get you. But we just got a wicked super chat that came in from David Lazowski, and you're gonna like this one, Reg.
Okay.
What do you think is holding Nova Scotia back? It seems like Nova Scotia could be a booming province. I see it as like an East Coast Vancouver Island, but with cheap land.
Okay, so I've done actually a lot of reading on this. In particular, there's a book called Nova Scotia Visions of the Future, and it was a collection of, I think it was like 30 thought leaders from Nova Scotia, like talking about what they think we could be. I think right now a lot of it is just we have such a like risk adverse culture here, and there's like almost this culture of defeatism where people just they don't believe it can happen. And it's really annoying because you'll get special interest groups. And I know Tim Houston mentioned this the other day and he got, lambasted for it. But basically he was like, we're talking about opening up exploration into critical minerals in Nova Scotia, which we have a ton. We have gold here, which is wild. Like we have a lot of gold and they won't touch it. And part of that is because of bad practices in the past that they just won't open it up in the future. But yeah, we're very risk adverse. We kind of hate anything that seems like it could fail. We have this, like I said, defeatist mentality about, we don't want to try something that might not work, and everything has to be 100% certain before we started. And I kind of hate that. So I think that's what's really holding us back, I think, is just the mentality, the attitude, and the appetite for risk. I think if we became a little more risk taking, I think that we'd be in a lot better state. But I think it comes back from our history of, we used to be quite industrious. We got squashed by central Canada and then, had years and years of poverty, and we don't want to return to there. So we know what poverty looks like and feels like very acutely. And so anything that looks like it might push us towards poverty, we shy away from very quickly. And then, like I said, that special interest piece, we have some very powerful voices that are just like, do not mine anything, do not extract anything. The only thing that we need to do here is service industry and tourism. And it's like, that is so wrong.
Here's some lobster while you're at it.
Yeah, exactly. And even that, people get upset about the fishing industry. And like the worst part is like, this is our main export right now is aquaculture. So I don't know. It's wild. People just think that money comes out of thin air or comes from the government.
Yeah, that was one of the things that you bring up. Anyone who knows me or knows my history, I come from Ontario. I grew up in Toronto, went to high school in Toronto, did all my thing, and then I moved out here to Nova Scotia to go to school. Then decided to stay because I liked the laid back atmosphere. And but that was the issue I realized is like anytime anyone wanted to try something, there was so much pushback. Like the whole joke about the Citadel Hill. Well, you can only build a building so many stories high because then it'll block the view of the Citadel. And it's like, okay. Or the other funny joke that happened with the building on the corner of Quinpool and Roby, where they couldn't exceed, 26 stories because it would cast a shadow on the commons. like,
Mhm.
and which was the park across the street. I'm like, that's the kind of what we're working with here here in Nova Scotia, is this mentality. And you agree. I think you hit a really interesting point there about the risk adverseness because of the history. Because I look at places like Sydney Mines, that was once super, like, it was flourishing when the mines were there and people were working there and spending money. It was great. Then the mines stopped, and true, they've had a tough time out there. So
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the comment about like the Citadel and the Commons and stuff like that. See, because like I look at it and I'm going, okay, like casting a shadow on the Commons, that would suck. Like maybe not do that. But the thing is, like, it's almost like there's no good alternative, because basically what happens is like there's a whole other parcel of land literally just behind it that you could put a 40-story building up and it wouldn't cast a shadow, but everybody's opposed to that. And it's just like, it doesn't matter what you pick. You could have something that's completely non-invasive, will not cast any shadows, will not block any views, and people will still say no because it's just a change. And so risk adverse, change adverse, and yeah, that's what I'm feeling with Nova Scotia. And so trying to in my own small way make those changes.
mm-hmm.
And I think that honestly I've seen a lot of change happen with this government, and pretty impressed with Tim Houston in the different areas that he's been able to push on, and I'm hoping to see a lot more out of him, honestly.
Yeah, and there's some good go back and forth here in the comments, where like I think David followed up on his super chat saying, I just think it would be a great place for people that can work from home, get fiber internet, and start building developments. Cape Breton seems like an amazing place, and yeah, in a lot of ways, like I feel like at least before COVID, a little bit harder now. Nova Scotia really suited the nomad life very well.
Yeah.
I was very high in Nova Scotia pre-pandemic, because housing was cheap. Things are still expensive here in terms of food and stuff than you would see in Ontario. But housing was dirt cheap. Like I could get a house on the ocean for $500,000. Count me in. Like it was great. But then obviously we've seen things change since, but even still in comparison to other cities across the country, we're still doing pretty well. And it could suit a nomad life. Like the fact that you can live within Halifax, have all the amenities of a bigger city-ish, and then drive 15 minutes and you're hitting the ocean and you get some hiking. Like you're not going to get that in Toronto. So that's where I think that comparison to Vancouver to Nova Scotia can definitely happen.
Yeah, and honestly, like one of the things that's been a strategy here is they've really kind of pushed high-speed internet across the province, and they've done a really, really good job on that. That was an initiative that started with Develop Nova Scotia, which then got absorbed into Build Nova Scotia, and they've just kind of continued that. So honestly, high-speed internet is, it's not completely 100% coverage, but they're like 80-85% coverage right now. There's a couple spots that it's hard because there's some mountainous terrain, which makes it harder to kind of get that internet kind of put in place. But there's Starlink and there's other things. So totally agree that that's a key feature. The other thing that would be really cool is if they had good transit across the province, so that you could, hop on a train and be 30 minutes and you'd be in Lunenburg, or, hop on a train, be, an hour and a half and be in Cape Breton. Like, I think that there's a lot of connectivity that used to exist in the province that you could honestly put back in place. And because they tore up the railroads back in the day, because they were like, nobody's going to want trains, cars are the future, which was so short-sighted. And they keep talking about wanting green infrastructure and stuff like that. Like, put the trains back and actually build connectivity with all the different rural communities, so that if you wanted to spend a night going to a hockey game in Halifax, you can, and then go back home to your place in the valley or your place on the South Shore or wherever. You know what I mean? So I think it's about building connectivity, continuing the good work that they've done with the rural internet strategy, and also just really getting serious about resources and the amount of resources that we have here. The wind we have for energy, like I said, the gold that we have. It's crazy that we would leave these kind of things untapped.
And I think that's the kind of the question all of us are having these days. A lot of our provinces across the country all have amazing resources and things they can offer, and yet we've had a federal government that says no touchy. So yeah. Now we are where we're currently at the moment, where Melanie Jolie is down in Washington, D.C., begging Marco Rubio, please talk to Trump for us, advocate that we don't want to put these tariffs on us, which goes back to my my video earlier today where I'm like, is this Are, are they trying to avoid a trade war? Do they want a trade war? What's happening? Are you trying, or are you just kind of like, I'm curious how these conversations are actually going. I trust Daniel Smith more than I would Melanie Jolie, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's why I'm like, if they were actually serious about having these discussions, they wouldn't send Melanie Jolie. Like they just wouldn't.
But she's the
That's
foreign
the
affairs
last person I
minister.
would
She's the
send.
foreign affairs minister, man.
Yeah,
She has to go.
yeah, that would be not the person I would send. I don't care who was the foreign affairs minister. I would be finding somebody who's actually trained in negotiation. I'd be sending them
How about Randy
special
Bolsonaro?
envoy of some sort.
We sending Randy? Let's send Randy.
Which Randy?
True. I love that. I set that one up nicely for you. I love that. Yeah, that's kind of where that is at. And so I would love to see where Canada could be. There was a debate I was seeing on X saying, what if Canada actually took care of their resources and exported it the way they should have exported starting in like the 70s, and where we'd be at now, and like how rich of a country it would be. I remember going to Alberta for a summer growing up. I mean, my history is a variety of places, but I spent a summer during university out in Calgary, and it was just crazy the difference between Nova Scotia and Alberta, where I'm like, everyone here's rich. It feels like, holy smokes, everyone's got money. It's all that oil money, right? And then he's talking to people in Alberta who at least work in the oil industry. There's like, you think this is awesome, man? Go to Saudi Arabia. Those guys are living the life. And I'm like, Alberta viewing what Saudi Arabia is like that's where they want to see more, that they want to be like the Saudis, which I thought was very intriguing. And just everyone's kind of always looking at that next stage up and what it could be. And but I think Canada really could be a really sweet spot if we just had competent leadership.
Yeah, well, it's this ridiculous green push that's going on, and like I said, I'm very much an advocate for environmentalism, for anti-pollution, but I also at the same time, you have to realize that nothing is without cost, and we have to figure out, okay, how are we going to extract from the environment that is done in a way that's respectful of the land, but also earns us a profit, so that we're not just getting all these critical minerals and getting all these things from other countries who are doing it in a bad way. Like, this is the part that's really annoying, is that we have no problem criticizing Alberta for its oil, but yet like have no problem also pulling in oil from Venezuela. It's like, do you think they're doing it in the most green way? No, God, no. They're probably doing it like a million times worse, because we have environmental protections here that just don't exist in other places. But we've just gotten so absurd with it all. This idea that like we won't extract any of it. And it's like, what the hell?
And the thing is, so this was the thing, man. So I started reading Mark Carney's book, Values.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to, people are feeling uneasy about Mark Carney, read his book. It will make you feel worse. And because I was reading, I was like, he literally, in more like in a roundabout way, was full on admitting that people just need to just get on board with their lives being worse because it's for the better of the economy and for the earth. And I was like, get out of here, man. I'm like, it was like so part and parcel what we've seen with this government over the past 10 years. I'm like, yeah, of course. The whole goal has been to make our lives worse for the sake of the earth. And I'm like, I never really a believer in, you can eat your cake and have your cake and eat it too. But in this case, I really do believe we can do that. Like, we can have a great life individually, and we can also take care of the earth. Like, I think both can be happening in this situation.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like the earth has a carrying capacity as well for carbon. Like, everybody doesn't need to stop producing carbon and then suddenly everything will be perfect. Like, that's not how it works. Like, the earth has a certain carrying capacity to be able to handle a certain amount of carbon, and that's a part of the cycle. But the problem is that when you've got places like India and China that are just pumping out emissions, like, it's going out of style. And then you've got a country like ours that has the most boreal forest in the planet, and we're actually a carbon sink going, we better raise the price on our groceries so that, people stop eating meat because, that's bad for the earth. It's so absurd. It's really, really frustrating to watch. And it's like, no. But to me, it's not about the earth. It's not about greening. It's about putting everybody on subscriptions. It's about everything is going to be something you subscribe to. You want to live somebody, you're going to be on a subscription called rent. You want to, have good food, you're going to have a subscription to that food based off of the carbon impact that we're already seeing happen in Great Britain, where they're adding carbon impact measures to foods and to different things. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's literally the you will own nothing like mantra just in play. And they're doing it out of the idea that this is all just, for the betterment of mankind. And it's about generational fairness. And it's just blah, 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 blah. Throw whatever language you want in there. It's all about putting us on subscriptions, because if you put everybody on a subscription for every single thing that they need to live, you've created an indentured servitude out of an entire people. And that's what it is.
That's a great point. And unprocessed cheese coming in hot right now, saying nothing sinks carbon faster or better than wetlands, and Canada has more wetlands than anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like one of the big things too that I was really frustrated about was that when they talk about, beef and beef products, they were saying about how bad it is for the environment, and the cow farts are just like the worst. It's like they're using massive fields of like grassland that would otherwise be like not very productive, that the cows were then eating, digesting, pooping out, and re-fertilizing the ground. Like, you know what I mean? There's so much that just, where is that counted in this whole thing? It's not, because it's inconvenient.
It's almost like the circular economy that they love spouting off about.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, here's a question, Reg. Do we want to surprise the homies on this call? I wanted to do this for an episode at one point, but do you want to talk about your history working with specific organizations?
Oh, I feel like I've told them before, but yeah, sure.
I mean, let's have some fun. Let's talk about it. Reg, who did you used to volunteer for back in the day?
Oh, I was a WEF boy.
Oh no! Worked for the forum. The forum.
I was a WEFty and a lefty.
Holy jumping! How did you get involved with them?
So basically, in university, I was a part of a group called Enactus, and what it is, it's out of business schools where they kind of create social enterprises where you try and create a business that does good, but also turns a profit, which is, to me, I think that's fantastic. And so after leaving that and finishing my degree, I was kind of like, oh, I want another way to give back. And so a friend of mine was just like, oh, I'm doing this Global Shapers thing. Like, you should totally do it. I'm like, oh, okay. So I looked into it. I was like, oh, this seems pretty cool. Like, the people there, absolutely amazing. Really, really good people. Really cared about the city. Really cared about communities. Wanted to do the right thing. And so much so that I loved what I was doing. We were doing a lot of work around like getting people politically involved, getting youth specifically into political debates. So at one point we had all the parties come in, and we hosted a debate based off of issues that were brought up by youth in the city. Awesome, really great. Did some stuff around creating community gardens, really great. The problem arose when I took leadership. And so we had about 44 people in this group, and I became the curator. And so with the curatorship, normally you'd go to Davos and you'd meet everybody else who's also curators around the globe. But because when I joined, the pandemic hit. So I was like, cool, I'll get robbed of my trip to Davos, womp womp, whatever. So the other thing that you're supposed to get is you're supposed to get access to what's called Top Link. And so that connects you directly into the WEF platform. We were struggling because normally you get like mentorship and funding, and you get kind of support from the WEF to do some of these projects that are, good news stories in your community, because they report on all of that. They make sure that they tell the world, like, look at all these good things that the Global Shapers, WEF members are doing. And sure enough, everything is basically shut down. And I've got a group of, 44 individuals that are struggling to keep their mental health together because they're like, we don't know what's going on in the world. And so I'm meeting with them virtually to try and like keep spirits up. And I've got the WEF saying to me, you need to be running projects.
What?
And so, oh yeah. And so I said to them, I was like, listen, I was like, we're doing our best just to kind of keep our heads above water here. Like, I don't know what you're expecting. And they were like, you are so privileged. Like, you should be doing more right now because, you're not struggling the way the other places are and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, listen, I'm a new leader. I need mentorship support here. I'm trying to keep all these individuals spirits up, trying to keep them, hopeful, just trying to like do a good thing here. And they were just like only focused on like, we need metrics so that we look good. And by the way, most of our funding and things come from businesses that are all closed right now. So you're just going to have to do it yourself. And you need to stop being so selfish and just go pump out projects, was literally the words that were said to us. Like, I was livid. I was like, are you kidding me? This organization that's supposed to be so good and so helpful and cares about everyone. They were just like, if you're not pushing out the projects so that we can have good metrics, we don't give a rat's about you. I was like, awesome, cool. And the worst part is there's so many of us that were a part of that just like had the best intentions to do good in the world, which is the part that's really disappointing because people later on, because when I ended my curatorship, the next person came in and she was like, Reg, like, this is ridiculous. Like, people are actually like coming after like some of the global shapers, blah, blah, and like kind of creating problems.
Because that's when the video would have popped off with "Oh, nothing, be happy" and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so basically what happened is like, and these people are just regular citizens, like in your community, just like young people just trying to do a good thing and not realizing the monster that they're connected to. And then you had people that were just like coming after them and being like, look at these, like, little clones that are out there just trying to do the WEF's bidding, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's not the case at all. But like, yeah, that's
sort of the case too at the same time. Yeah.
That's sir.
But sort of the case at the same time, like they don't realize what they're doing. They think they're doing something good, but there isn't a higher agenda that they're unaware of.
Well, see, this is the thing is like you set your own projects and you set your own impact for your community. The only thing is that the WEF gets to claim all of the credit for the work that you're doing.
Interesting.
So they are like, we're providing you a network. And it's like, okay, fair enough. But at the same time, like you're really doing nothing. Mm-hmm. So but what are they saying?
They're popping off. There's a lot. I'll say the Five Pines had a funny statement. She's like, I can only imagine Klaus just yelling at Reg in the middle of Davos for not doing more.
It was wild, man. Like, so like literally he came on one of the calls. It was just
no way. He did. Oh
yeah. He's like, it's a global shape house. I'm not doing more. And you're like, no kidding. The world shut down. Like, friggin' idiots. And anyway, yeah. So he was pissed. And then they had 3 managers for the global shapers. So one for like North America, one for Europe, obviously that one was like Oceania, Asia. And so the 3 of them are just like on there, just like berating us that we're not doing enough.
The Nova Scotia chapter.
Yeah. And I'm just like, give me a break. And they're like, your chapters should be growing. You should be doing things. And like, you should be doing more to help out with the pandemic. And like the fact that you're not doing any pandemic projects, like is insulting. And just they kept mentioning our privilege, like over and over again. Of course they did. And so you could, like, I don't buy the whole privilege thing. I think we'll have a conversation about it another time. But honestly, like the amount of people that were just like, oh no, my privilege, what? Like, just like, that was just like striking them right to their core. They were devastated. But yeah, I was not having a good time.
Oh man. David Lazowski, I will come back to your super chat here. We're just going to kind of continue on this vein for the WEF, but I will come back to that. I think that's a great question. Reg escaped the cult. But the question they do ask is, did it feel like a cult to you, or was it just kind of a normal organization?
So prior to actually getting to see behind the curtain, it was just a volunteer organization. You were just there to volunteer. We met up, we had food, talked to good people, just, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It wasn't until you got connected to WEF's ridiculous reporting structure that it became obvious that they were just in it to try and take credit for the work that you were doing. And so from there, I was just like, I wish we just had a volunteer organization in our community that was community-based that did the same thing. Because the work that we did on the ground was really good. It's just, like I said, the reporting structure and the requirements that they're putting was just like unnecessary pressure and just took the joy out of a lot of things, because they were just like, we want more out of you, and we don't care if this is something that makes you feel good in your community. We need quotes, we need metrics, we need things that we can report on.
Yeah. That sounds like it sounds like a domineering organization, essentially, is what it sounds like. It's like, it sounds like, let's have some impact in the world, or take over the world, however you want to view it. Because similarly, I've come from a family of churches that originated with something very similar. We need to go evangelize the world. If you're not going out sharing your faith, you're a bad Christian. You're a bad person. If you know, that was the mentality. So I'm literally on, like, church to the WEF is sounding very similar vibes. Of going after converting the world to whatever your cause is.
Yeah. And honestly, like, it's funny because I also was a Christian at one point in time.
Let's go.
So,
Let's go.
I see the similarities very much so.
Love it. Also, Five Pines followed up with that, saying, she's like, oh my gosh, I was totally kidding. That's even more hilarious that he was yelling at you on a Zoom call.
Oh yeah. No, like he was in one of our calls with all the curators, because they had done this, like, curator call, and he got on there and was just like berating us for basically not doing more, and that we need to help the world in need. It was very much like a shaming event.
Of course.
And I was like, well, that's sucked.
Yeah.
And like nobody laughed, because you were like, well, I can't be the person that leads the call, but like you're sitting there going like, I don't want to take this.
Yeah.
The other thing too was that they really pushed their Top Link platform. And so what that was is like, it basically was a platform that you had to upload your credentials, your information, and it was supposed to be a way to like chat. It was basically kind of like a LinkedIn, but only for the World Economic Forum. And we were just like not using it. And we got called out for it, because it was like, I don't really want to use it. Like, we have so many social media applications right now. We don't need another one. And they got on there and they're just like, we spent millions of dollars building this, and you need to use it, and you need to be communicating through it, and blah, 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 and be using our platform. And it was like, ugh.
Yeah, not a fan of this.
Oh yeah. Upload your projects, upload your personal information, insert your credit card number now. Not the last one, but
just your SIN number though. No, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was just like this, like, be in our platform, be using our ways of working, or don't be with us at all. It was just like, I don't know. I hated it.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. That sounds terrible. But yeah, there's some great comments there. The Cult of WEF, now eat your crickets. P.S. Hello from Alberta. Shout out unacceptable. Betty White, that was a great question. He still leads the BBC journalist, said he talks to population. Unacceptable Dale said, are you sure Reg escaped? He looks like pasty, no sunlight. They're still getting after you about being pasty. He had a fever, y'all. He's dying. He's better now, though.
I'm actually still feverish right now. Like,
oh shoot! Why are you here?
I'm melting. I'm hyped up on Advil cold and sinus.
Oh gee. Unacceptable Dale said again. He's like, wow, lucky Klaus didn't spank you, is what he said. Oh man, some great comments here.
He verbally spanked all of the curators, like, badly.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds terrible. It's not like I wouldn't enjoy that, especially during the pandemic. Terrible. Let's go to the super chat we got from David Lazowski. I think Reg would like the 15 years of emissions reduction Alberta video. It goes through the cool stuff that Alberta has done to build our clean tech industry. So shout out to you there.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because the other thing that people don't realize, because I've been getting a lot of like pushback too, because I was like, they're like, why are you so pro oil? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I did a resource and environmental management master's. Like, I looked at all this stuff. We talked about carbon taxes before the carbon tax was even a thing in Canada. And we looked at it and they basically said, like, this actually doesn't help. Like, you know what? Like, there's a certain level of of carbon that's going to be emitted because people have necessary purchases. Like demand is only so elastic when it comes to needing to drive to your work, needing to buy groceries, needing to
Eat your
do
eggs.
things that use oil. So yeah, like 100% will check that out, because like I said, there's ways that we can be using this stuff and doing these things in a environmentally friendly way that really satisfies both needs of like being conscious about the environment, but also not putting us in the hole.
Yeah. Thomas says, "Is this the roast of Reg?" JD says, "Reg is doing great for a sicko."
Thanks, appreciate it.
Everyone's lighting you up. Lord of Night says, "Is Canada finished? I just watched the UBI vid, which would have been the we dropped this afternoon. I don't think Canada's done. I just think we need to recognize what's happening. A lot of people think this is a battle between parties. This is a battle between ideologies, and it's gone a lot deeper than we realize what's happening. Jagmeet, Trudeau on the same side, the NDP Liberals same side. I believe I'll go on my own and say this separate from Reg. This is very clearly to me a battle between globalism and nationalism, and right now we have agents who work for who are involved with an organization that is beyond our borders that wants to push ideologies that are against the interests of Canada, and they're in power trying to make that happen as we speak and trying to cling on to power because they are so deeply unpopular. That is the battle we're seeing right now, and they're trying to push these different things and trying to push it so far that it becomes almost unrecoverable from a party coming back in. And that is more so the concern. I think we just need to pay attention, call it for what it is, and have good, thoughtful conversations with people in our lives. Because going to everyone saying, the WEF, UBI, they're taking us over. Like, it's just like that. No one's going to listen to that. Because admittedly, like I'm trying to have good conversations with people I know and love. And there's like, Josh, I hear you. It just feels like it's a little like just out of reach. I'm like, I hear you, but trust me, it's going on. And try to build out the story of how everything links together. And I said it on the show, I think, this morning's show, where I'll be honest with you. I feel like when I go through this stuff, I feel like I'm going crazy. When I was reading Mark Carney's book and seeing what he's writing about, I'm like, this can't be for real. Like the word transhumanist comes to mind, the stuff he was talking about, which I can't believe even those words left my mouth to describe someone who wants to be our PM here in Canada. So that is more so the concern. And I think we just need to acknowledge it for what it is, because the left will always do this, because Alex Jones has made a name for himself doing this. But they'll always call you, oh, you conspiracy theories, you're just Alex Jones. And I'm like, I hear you. Alex Jones, he says a lot of crazy things, but he's also often right. He just says it in a very crazy way where no one can really listen to it and hear it. We can't translate a message in the Alex Jones method. We have to have very thoughtful conversations with our friends here in Canada, because we are so apprehensive and so scared to not be like America that you have to be even extra thoughtful in how you approach those conversations with your friends.
I also think that we're a population that's been so brainwashed. Like, it's just like I was saying this to you and another person the other day about some of the things I'm hearing at my work, even just from folks around Mark Carney. And so one of the guys was saying, he's like, oh, like Mark Carney, he's going to come in. He saved us during 2008, and he saved Great Britain, and he can save us again. And I'm like, what do you think happened in 2008? And he was like, oh, like he was like worked with the Bank of Canada. He was some kind of advisor for economics and stuff. And I was like, he was governor of the Bank of Canada. I was like, do you know what the Bank of Canada can actually do? And he was like, oh, like, well, they adjusted our economics in such a way that we, didn't end up crashing like the States did. And it's like, no, they control interest rates. Like, economic policy is controlled by our elected officials. And he just kind of like looked at me and he's like, okay, well, he's like, why would you vote Polyev? Wasn't he in the Bloc Québécois at some point? And it's just like, oh my God. And he's like, and like, he doesn't have any policies. And like, it's just all those same points that
Talking
like
points.
the liberals and the NDPs have just been saying over and over and over again. And then even when you see any articles in the CBC, the way that they're written in such an inflammatory tone to really cast doubt on Polyev, it's really frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of something I said before. Like, I don't know if going after the CBC was the correct move by Polyev, because he was already being cast in such a unfavorable light by them previously that I don't know if that was the right call by him. I know that he was probably just frustrated as all hell with them, but like, they have such a stranglehold on media that to make an enemy out of them was just, was that the right choice? I don't know.
I
Like,
I think it was okay. I think this is fun. I think this is a good, healthy debate here, because I remember when he first came out publicly saying he was against the CBC, and his acknowledgement and what his reasoning was, he's like, they're going to come after me anyways. Might as well just draw a line in the sand of how I feel about them too, and let them know that it's not going to be a tolerated how they've been acting. And they just released some data of how people are voting intentions across ages. And what we're seeing is that liberals are heavily favored with those 55 plus.
yeah,
But the conservatives are growing amongst the youth. And I think that is something where, people who still watch CBC are 55 plus. People who are below like 40, 45 and lower are watching shows like ours. The only concern I have is there are a lot of shows like ours out there on the left and the right. Rachel Gilmore just launched her YouTube channel. You have Steve Boots, who has his YouTube channel. JB Poli-Sci on TikTok is always on live. So people will always go to their echo chambers. And that is a little bit of a different issue and concern that we'll have to talk about at a different time. But we are starting to realize youth are very much relying on independent channels more than they are mainstream media, which I think made Poilievre's decision to go after CBC an okay one that I think will pan out for him in the long run.
Yeah, I wonder about, especially being like, we're defunding them and blah 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 blah. Like, I'm like, was it too far? Like, I definitely think you can call out the fact that you're getting unfair treatment. The other part of it is that, like, if you're on the left though, you're like, oh look, he's just whining about CBC again. You know what I mean? So it's just, I don't know. But yeah, I agree with you. And also, isn't it funny that the folks who are, tending to be more liberal, tending to watch the CBC, are all that 55 plus, those folks who really benefited from having more conservative policies all their life. So they were able to have homes, and they were able to have pensions and things built up, and they were able to really reap the benefit of future generations, because they taxed us into oblivion and just kept pushing the can down the line. And then they're also the ones who'll be like, these kids these days, wild. I know they just want to have a family and live in a home.
How dare they? Stupid. PomFom has a $5 super chat coming in saying, Brian Mulroney Agenda 21, Stephen Harper Agenda 2030, 1 month before election loss. Pierre Poilievre was fully aware of the behind the scenes shenanigans. And the follow-up response to that was, Pierre also wants retaliatory tariffs instead of just fixing the problem. So there is definitely some issues to address with Poilievre and the conservatives. It's one of those, though, it's like, okay, how can we put pressure on them and maintain pressure on them? Because I'm seeing it down south of the border, right? Trump made a lot of promises in his campaign. And the MAGA base, the minute he delineated, which when that whole H-1B visa thing came up, the base exploded. And that showed to me that people there's parts of it, of course, that you can be a cult. But the left will always call, MAGA's just a cult. And I'm like, yeah, but a cult doesn't explode against their leader when they do something they're unhappy with.
Yeah.
And so that was something that really stuck out to me. And I'm like, okay, and so Trump's been very loyal to his base and really doing a lot of work in his early days here. And that's my question, is like, how can we try to instill that type of culture as in this incoming conservative government eventually, is more so my question, because they get a super majority or a majority in general. Nothing's stopping them. So as we've just realized, the liberals have exposed during these times, these loopholes. So how do we address these issues is more so something I've been trying to work on in my own head as we go on.
Well, I think a lot of it comes back to the fact that people need to be able to be involved in politics. They need to be keeping the feet to the fire, like when it comes to these governments. And exactly what we saw with the MAGA crowd and Trump when he deviated. Like, we can't just be like, this guy's our guy. We voted him in, so set it and forget it. It's like you can't be like that. That's why we've often said on the show that if and when Pierre Poilievre becomes prime minister, we're not going to stop criticizing or being critical, maybe not criticizing, but being critical of the leader just because, we're like, oh yeah, that was the guy we wanted to get in.
Yeah.
It's like, no. It's about, like I said, keeping the feet to the fire, making sure that they're on the straight and narrow and that they're actually acting in the best interest of Canadians. I'm expecting some big changes coming out of this government if and when they become elected. Especially when they were the ones, like you look at Michael Barrett, talking about ethics and making sure that the government is following in an ethical manner and using funds in an ethical manner and what that means for government and rebuilding trust. Like, if they don't do that, we're screwed, because we have this ridiculous government right now and they're sure as hell not doing it. So if we get the government that's quote unquote common sense get in and they don't do that, I don't know.
Yeah, that is the big question, right? Because we've had that back and forth constantly, where our whole system needs an overhaul and needs to put power back to the people. And this whole idea that our system's been built off of is we're just going to trust our politicians are going to do the right thing doesn't fly anymore. Trudeau's ruined that. The Liberals have blown that whole thing up. Now we need checks and balances for everybody. I don't care who you are. I don't care what party you're part of. We need to make sure we're restoring power back to the people so that this cannot happen again.
And I think we need some radical change. There needs to be some customs and conventions that need to be looked at and said, is this really in the best interest of Canada? I mean, the fact that we have like the Senate sitting there, that's going to be now, we're going to have another 10 appointments by this Liberal government. So we're basically going to have a Liberal Senate that's all been appointed. Like, ridiculous. Or I'm now criticizing the Governor General. I thought that was stupid to begin with, but now I think it's even more stupid. I'm so glad that we've got that lawsuit, or at least legal challenge of proroguement going forward. What the hell is proroguement for? Like, this is a throwback from the British monarchy, basically, in their system. Get rid of it. There shouldn't be any reason to prorogue. If government is dysfunctional, send it to an election. Like, don't put it on pause and hope that makes everything better. Like, I hate it, because everybody criticizes how Stephen Harper used proroguement back in 2008. Yeah, I was gonna say 8 or 9.
Yeah,
but,
actually, you might be right.
Anyway.
It might be 09. But yeah.
So, like, everybody criticizes that, and I'm like, you know what? Fair criticism. Agreed. Proroguement, stupid. Proroguement right now, stupid. Why do we have this? Get rid of it. Also, we need to have a way for us to put the premiers of the provinces in charge to say, if 2/3 of us don't agree with the way that Canada's going, call an election, get a new leader, because we don't support this.
Yeah, I think that was. I love the one thing I love about you, Reg, is you're not shy to propose very radical things. And the one thing
Radical Reg.
Yeah, Radical Reg. The one thing I know you love talking about is abolishing the Senate altogether.
Oh yeah, get rid of it.
Yeah, I know. And you've also gone so far as to say get rid of federal MPs. And you feel like they're redundant.
Weird, like, I really think that so much of our system is it's just duplication. Like, what do MLAs versus MPs do? Like, I know one is for the province, one is for the country, blah, blah, blah. Like, but in reality, what is it that they are actually doing? Like, when you actually look at the work that's being done, and when they investigate bills, and when they're coming up with policies, and that's all being done by the bureaucracy. It's being done by people that are just fresh out of university, that are using Google and using the powers of basically consulting to come up with ideas.
Right.
None of this is actually being done by the MPs, and to like say that they're representatives for us, I think that's the biggest load of BS, because they're not representing us. They're representing the party and the interests of the party, and if they don't follow along with the party, then they get whipped. Like, you know what I mean? I think it's ridiculous. Like, if I can get on board with reforming the roles of MPs and not going that far. But party whips need to go.
Yeah,
people need to be
crazy.
able to vote based off of the needs of their citizens if they are truly to represent us, because right now they're not representing us. They're representing their own interests and they're representing party interests, which is garbage.
Definitely. Ama Sweeze says Reg for Canadian Doge.
100%.
Put me on the team. I'd be so on board with that.
Yeah, I would be like, sign me up. I'll leave my job right now to go do that.
Yeah, it's shoot, forgot what I was gonna say, but we'll move. Oh yeah, going back to Doge, like we are gonna do a whole episode on this, but do we want to give a bit of a Coles Notes version of what our team has discovered going through all the documents of all the money that's left our country to go serve other needs? Kind of what the America just saw, stopping $50 million from going to Gaza to buy condoms. So
yeah,
what have we been seeing on our end here?
So it's ridiculous how much is going to consulting companies. So KPMG, Deloitte, I'm trying to think of the other big ones. But basically every big consulting firm in the country, the reason why these public accounts aren't being audited by any of them and those findings being published, because they're ludicrous, is because they are making so much money off the Canadian taxpayer. It's absurd. I think there was a joke recently. It was like KPMG was paid to do a study on consultants, and it found that, Canada should stop paying consultants except for KPMG. It's like, yeah, funny how that comes out.
Yeah.
But just the hundreds of millions of dollars under each ministry going to, it was like 152 million to KPMG under the Department of Labor. And then another one was like 57 million going to Deloitte under the Department of Labor. Then the other part of it too was just the amount of money that's being spent on programs and job incentivizing programs. It's like you could just give that money back to people and they would be better off. They wouldn't even have to work. Basically, people like Canadians are having their tax dollars ripped from them, given to the government, just for the government to hand over to an Amazon or to a large corporation for them to hire you to work your hours of life away so they can give you back your own money. You're working for free. And basically the people who get rich off this are the large companies and the government that's, funding it. So it's really frustrating when you look at it, and it's very obvious. It's not a conspiracy theory. You can see it right in their public accounts, but because they make those accounts so cumbersome, we're talking hundreds of pages per volume, and there's 3 volumes and then sub volumes under that. And the way that they actually do the accounting, like I had one of the guys that works with us on the team, he's a trained accountant, and he's looking at this. He's like, these accounting practices, he's like, they don't make sense. He's like, the government has their own special accounting, it looks like. He's like, I've had to look stuff up that just doesn't make sense. And they do that to hide things. And so when you look at how much is being spent, the other part of it too is that, so different departments will have crossover. So one department will fund investigations into housing and housing infrastructure, while the department actually responsible for housing and infrastructure will also fund studies and research into housing and infrastructure. I'm like, why? Why are we both doing this?
Yeah.
And where are those reports?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't they listed so that we can see them and read them and understand them? Why are they all behind somebody's, closed door? I just, those are the things that I'm seeing that I'm just like, there's so much money that Pierre doesn't even have to cut the stupid farmer care program that Jagmeet's put in place. He doesn't have to cut any of these expensive programs that really should be handled by the provinces. He could leave them in place and still put money back into Canadians' pockets just by all the ridiculous spending, duplication of services between ministries, and then again, all the money that's just flying out of the country to go fund, I think it was gender-based education in Afghanistan. I'm like, that place is going to just take that money, put it into a warlord's pocket and say, thanks, we took away women's ability to speak in public. Cool.
Yeah,
Like it's
great.
There was
Great idea.
another one. There's like, for whatever reason, we love sending money to Latin America too, like and Central America. I don't know why, but like just throwing money down there. I know that Scotiabank is pretty big down there, so I don't know if there's an influence there, but
Well, we all know
lots of money going down that way to support business development.
I'm sure. Yeah, lots of business to develop over there. Their number one export over there is great. And the question that there's a lot of people that agree with you. I'm going to follow up with theirs because they thought there's some great points, but we'll hit the super chat that just came in. PT93 Music says, at what point do you think we see another freedom convoy organized? Because of that's where everything's heading because of prorogation. And I'll start. I'll give you a break to catch your breath there, Reg. You've been going. Super valuable information. I don't know if we will see one of those. I think a lot of Canadians were scared by how the last one was handled. We, unfortunately, we're the country that stayed loyal to mom and dad. Our sibling decided to leave the family and start their own thing. And the way those two countries are raised up, that mentality infiltrates both. America is built on the conquering spirit, go after, screw authority. We're going to keep going forward. Whereas Canada was brought up on being obedient. And we see that in both of our cultures. The fact that Freedom Convoy even happened in Canada was jaw-dropping in the first place. And I would like to see, I hope it doesn't have to come to that. But I think what's coming now is just people are scared and people don't want to be labeled a specific way, even though they're becoming less and less caring about the label. So it's really weird what's happening because people are still dropping their boundaries or their guards on this stuff. But anytime you hear a convoy, all the barriers go right up when you're talking to people about it, I find. You go for Reg.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think, like, speaking personally, I think what's happened is that we're so indebted right now. The government has put this country in such a spot that we can't afford to lose our jobs. We can't afford to have bank accounts frozen. We would be homeless faster than you can say the word homeless. And the government knows this. And so all they have to do is threaten to freeze bank accounts again. And people are absolutely screwed. And they know it. And so I think we won't see a freedom convoy because I just think that people are so burdened by our debt loads just to keep up with the cost of housing, the cost of food, the cost of utilities, that they've got us over a barrel right now. I know I can't afford to go participate in a freedom convoy because my mortgage is too high. The cost of electricity is too high. The cost of food is too high. And I have a 2-year-old that she comes first. And like my best hope is that I can contribute in this small way to try and raise awareness. But I have so much at risk that if I was to lose 2 months of my salary, we would be screwed. I would lose my home. And so, and they know this.
Yeah. And that's a great point. And that is essentially where we're at. But then it kind of goes, there's thresholds, right? Where if they keep pushing on these things, Reg, what do you think is the threshold for people saying, I've lost everything at this point. I don't care. Now I'm going to Parliament because they can't take anything else from me.
I think that's what it comes down to. When people start losing their jobs en masse and they realize they can't pay their bills anyway, that's when you start seeing people going to, because that's basically what was happening with the truckers, right? Is they were losing their employment. And that's why they protested, because they were like, I can't work. I can't make an income. I can't feed my family. Why the hell not? We're going to go to Parliament. I think that's what it takes. It takes losing your employment,
your income,
before people will act, because at that point you're like, well, they can't take anything more from me because they've already taken everything.
It's a great point. Tammy Robinson says there are 56 Liberal MPs back in Carney. They are all WEF trained members. Singh became WEF trained young global leader in 2018. Karina Gould graduated from the program in 2020. That's all correct. That's very true. 41% of the Canadian GDP is federal government. Let that sink in. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is so I was actually on Statistics Canada's labor market survey the other night, and I was kind of so some of the things you heard in Josh's monologue about the change in employment, that comes directly from Statistics Canada. And so looking at the way that employment is going in our country, like agriculture and manufacturing and any kind of like physical labored job, oil and gas, quarry and mining, all that is down. And then when you look at the public service, public administration, public service, way up. And then even in those pieces, like I said, like agriculture and energy and mining and stuff like that, when you actually look at the self-employment, self-employment is down, except in areas where it says self-employment supported. And so what that supported is it's if they get subsidies to hire employees, or they get tax breaks to start a new business or whatever. So basically when you look at it and it's like incorporation unsupported, way down. Incorporated supported, it's either down or up marginally. So it's just, we're watching the Canadian economy be artificially supported by this government. And I'm like, how long can they keep doing this? It's just wild to think that they've got every industry kind of propped up right now by worker programs and subsidies and any of these things to try and keep them from sinking. But even still, like the amount of businesses that are closing and the amount of sole proprietorships that are just going under, it's scary. And then when you don't even look at that, when you look at the corporations that are just moving out of country and moving to the States instead, like Amazon, 100%, they didn't like the whole union thing. They were sending a message.
Yeah.
But at the same time, would that have been as dramatic if our landscape here wasn't so unfavorable for business? Who knows, right? I mean, maybe they would have closed the one plant down and said, there, you've learned your lesson. But they pulled everything. And it was probably like, one, we don't like unions, and two, it sucks to do business in Canada. Screw it, we're done.
Yeah.
And they pulled.
Yeah. They've driven everything out of here, man. When it came also to your points about KPMG, people called that as well as McKinsey being a huge issue as well. Again, pretty much named all the big ones. And Unacceptable Dale saying, this is my first live stream on Elevate. And Two Flipped for Twist says, same, I didn't know they did lives. Well, here we go, folks. We don't do them typically. This is new for us. It was fun. Reg and I were chatting at the beginning of the month, and we realized it was going to be a slow month. So we thought. And there wasn't a whole lot of news happening. January is typically kind of slow for YouTube traffic in general. So it's like, you know what, let's have some fun this month. Let's plan like an AMA live stream, just chat with the homies and see what's up.
And we hit 50K.
50K.
Yeah, subscribers.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We did hit 50,000. I forgot about that. I was like, what are you talking about? It's been so long. But yeah, we ended up hitting 50K this month too, which was insane. So we were really psyched about that. But we just like, we thought things were going to be slow. So we thought we'd plan an AMA. And now here we are. So our first live stream together. Typically, Reg would be in studio with me, but we got dumped on snow-wise. Reg is coming off of a fever. So we just thought it'd be best to not be in the same room. But that's typically what we do. So we actually want to do more of these as time goes on. We just don't know how frequently. But we do enjoy chatting with y'all. We did a live stream for our Nova Scotia election. We did a live stream for the American election, which was fun. So we do these from time to time, but we do want to be more frequent because we do just love chatting with you guys because you guys are hilarious in the chat.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure unprocessed cheese the last time had me laughing so hard. I was like, I had to like mute myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Tammy Robinson coming with the stat, which I thought was, this actually stat is true. That Brookfield now owns 29% of all single family homes in America. So, and that's the thing is I did an episode about that where how much the corporations are buying up homes in the States, and the company that Brookfield. I don't know if are you sure it's Brookfield? I thought, because that's the company that Mark Carney used to be part of and still probably owns shares in, I imagine. I thought we were talking about BlackRock owns 29%. I don't know. I know Brookfield owns like a portion, but not that much. But I could be wrong. I'll follow up on that. But that's the reality, is there's so much corporate ownership in the States now. And the issue is in Canada, we don't keep good records. We have no transparency on who's buying up our real estate. So we actually don't really know how much corporations are buying up real estate here, but it's starting to increase from what we're hearing. So it's weird.
The other thing like we're even witnessing here in Halifax is just houses, like single family homes, are just being plowed over so that they can build rentals. And rentals have really been incentivized too. And so we are lucky in the sense that we have seen a lot more single family homes being built in Nova Scotia as a whole. But in your urban centers, though, just single family homes going the way of the dodo bird. So, and there's such a push to push people into the urban centers that, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if most homes are going to be owned by large corporations. And they're also making it really hard for people to buy homes. Like I hated this when we bought our house. The fact that there's a land transfer tax and there's like other fees, like 2% on the home, like price. So like we bought our home, we paid $600,000 for the home, and then we had to spend an extra 2% on that, like just to say that we bought it. I'm like, this is absurd.
Gee, so
like,
crazy.
what is that for?
Yeah.
We don't have, so like the other part of it too is like, we don't have access to city water. We don't have access to city bus services. Like we have rural fire and like mail. So I'm just like, we live pretty rurally in comparison to the downtown. So I just don't get like what we're paying that for. But
you also get hit with the ditch tax too, man. Living out there.
Yeah, exactly.
They can't charge you for water, so they charge you the ditch tax, which is crazy.
Yeah. So because our property has impermeable surfaces, so they count my dirt driveway as an impermeable surface, and they count my roof on my house as an impermeable surface. Even though the water runs into the backyard and into the grass back there, doesn't matter. Like it's absurd. And they send me a bill, which I've yet to pay since we moved here.
Good.
Yeah.
That's how
I don't think it's enforceable because we don't have a contract with Halifax Water, but they seem to think that we do. But
that's insane.
Whatever.
Yeah, screw those guys. And I'm glad you did that. And this is the thing, is like, you think about the American Revolution, that was fought over very much smaller issues.
Yeah. It's fought over tea.
Yeah. and they wanted to increase it to what, 3% tax on tea, was it? Something like that?
Yeah.
It was something like drastically tiny. And they went to war over it. It's kind of nuts. Who was it? David F says, Jasmine Lane just hit 50,000 subscribers the other night too. And I was like, dude, you're right. I totally missed that. And thanks for calling that out. I'm a bad friend. I have to text her. I totally missed that for her. I need to give her a shout. Thanks for reminding me, David. Tammy Robin says, I love live streams and we love having you. Love from Alberta, Rob Carlton. Love you. Sex Edmund Thunder says, poor Arya being kicked out of the race.
I know.
Oh man, there was a follow up to that was hilarious. Oh yeah, he follows that up with, I guess the diversity team didn't like him.
Well,
not the right kind of diversity.
Right skin tone. He just had the wrong ideas.
Yeah, wrong ideas and didn't speak the right languages.
Yeah, that's true.
Dude,
French? No.
I hate that people keep fixating on the idea of like, he's like, no, I don't want to speak French. Because that wasn't the crazy part of that interview to me. It was the crazy part was the fact he was advocating for Quebec to have sovereignty from itself. I was like, yo, that's far crazier than the language thing. Are you nuts?
Yeah. I don't know. I just like, Quebec sovereignty is always a question. So for me, I just didn't feel like it was like anything new.
Oh man. It was new because you had a potential PM that was advocate. It was like, yeah, I can see it. Why not? Like no PMs actually said that.
Yeah, I guess like you just knew that he was never going to become PM.
Hey,
so
yeah, the Liberal Party made sure of it. Of course, freaking guys, we had hope.
We called that one.
Ruby Dallo though, unreal. I do find it interesting. I could be wrong, but I do find it interesting that after she puts that scathing video out about just deporting all illegal immigrants, Poilievre comes out on the Holocaust Remembrance Day saying we're going to deport all illegal immigrants. And I was like, I mean, I hear the message. Don't know if I wanted to pick that avenue to share that, but fair enough.
Yeah. Well, what I thought when I saw that, because I did see that, I was like, oh, interesting. You're saying that now. She did the work of testing the waters.
Yeah.
And he was waiting. So he like, kind of peeked around the corner and went, what did Canada think of that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, then it was like, we're going to deport the illegals. Like, you like that to me felt a little spineless, I think, a little cowardly to wait until somebody else says it first to see what the reaction would be. But I mean, hey, they're trying to win an election, so whatever. But
yeah, you can't take any chances.
Yeah.
But that I think that's kind of more so the frustrating thing I have about the Conservative Party in general, is the fact that they go off of what their focus groups are saying. They don't really. They're not like, I don't know, that's why so many people gravitated to Trump, is because he was going from his gut. He knew what he was seeing and he spoke from the gut, whether you like it or not. That's what people really resonated with.
Mm-hmm.
Polyev just a little too calculated, which people have a hard time connecting with. That's kind of what I appreciate about Ruby. Whether you agree with the policy or not, I really appreciate her just like, nah, this is how it's going. Like, this is my conviction. This is what I believe. I'm like, you know what? You go, girl. Fair enough. Light it up. I'm so curious. Especially, it was like, and again, it's one thing if it's a conservative saying it, but someone's coming in the Liberal Party saying that. I'm like, you know what? Let's go.
My vote.
They're freaking out. They're freaking out over there that someone, because you can't say, oh, those racist conservatives. It's like, no, this is a brown woman in the Liberal Party who said this. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Oh,
they've been very quiet about that. That one is like only making the rounds on conservative media. Yeah. It's nowhere to be found on liberal media.
Oh, one person talked about it.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Who was that?
Rachel Gilmore.
What was she like? I don't understand.
I don't think you can do that, Reg. Stop doing that, Reg. Reg, for your own sake, stop doing that. No, I actually responded to her tweet, actually, because I was actually kind of disgusted by what she was saying. I ignore her at all costs, just because I just don't think she's very constructive. But this scenario, I was like, I needed to say something. I was like, come on, man, that's not right. What was it?
Man, I have an office chair that I got from Amazon back, I don't know, a year ago.
Oh yeah.
For whatever reason, the piston in it just like over time just slowly sinks. So like,
you're going, there you go, you're back. I'll throw it back up. I'll throw it up here as so her tweet was, I can decide what so she was retweeting what Ruby said. Ruby's post saying that she'll deport all illegal immigrants living in Canada if she's PM, and Rachel retweets it saying, I can't decide what's more ridiculous, the dumbass message or the brazen face tune, and then goes into a follow-up post about how she she's got like work done to her face and like commenting on her looks, and I was like
of all the people, of all the people,
I was not a huge fan of it. And she's like, she's on Tana Monjo levels, which if you know your YouTube stuff, Tana's a bit of a character. But that's what I responded with. I was like, Rachel says women should support women. Also, Rachel immediately attacks that woman who and the looks of another woman. I was like, it's just so hypocritical, and it was so over. And I'm like, just because you disagree with her views, you're going to go attack her looks. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I get that people do that to you a lot, but like, doesn't mean you should be doing that to others.
Well, you should know better.
Yeah.
Like, knowing that people attack you based off of the way that you look, you should know better to not do that. And like, it was very evident when we were in Ottawa and the other reporters were like, oh, Rachel Gilmore. And like some of the comments about like how she's using her looks and things to try and gain views. And they made that very clear. And this was from the other reporters. And then for her to then try and basically label another person that way, wow, just the hypocrisy is incredible.
True. Yeah, it's I was kind of annoyed. And JD says, "Wow, Rachel Gilner is tearing down another woman, very misogynistic." I'm like, it's true. Yeah.
It's all her internalized misogyny.
Yeah. Gosh. Um, Christian comes in with a super chat saying, "Would you invest in your children's future by capitalizing on the French language asset and unlocking the advantages of its heritage?"
Nope.
Okay,
And
why
I'll
not?
tell you why. Because the way that technology is going, I don't think knowing another language is going to be even all that valuable. Because like some of the things that I've seen right now, even with translation,
Mm,
I don't think it's going to be necessary. Like I did a whole like 3 hour course today on AI in the public service, and they were talking about how you can just write in whatever you want into Microsoft Copilot, and it will translate it into every language that you need. I don't think knowing another language is going to be useful. I think it's going to go the way of the dodo bird.
I think that's fair. I'm more biased on this one because I grew up in French immersion up through high school, and I again I haven't used it except for when I'm in Quebec and I have to talk to somebody. But it kind of threw me off because I don't hear that story about the EMT the other night, who like supposedly allegedly told the person she was caring for that she's like, we're in Quebec, we only speak French, and wouldn't give her care in English. And I like immediately, it was like role playing in my head. I was like, how would I respond to her saying something like that? And immediately the French came to me. I was like, whoa, I didn't know that was still there. That's pretty crazy. But you from New Brunswick, there's French and English sides of, was it Moncton?
Yeah, so the province is basically split on an angle for French and English.
Right.
And I did French most of my life through school, so I've got a good working knowledge of it. My wife, she did French immersion right up until high school, so we both, like the pair of us, know enough French to get by. We don't use it ever, so I totally agree with you that. Where I do find it useful is listening to the speeches that are given by the politicians when they speak in French versus when they speak in English.
Yes.
Sometimes the translation isn't the same.
No.
And which has been very interesting. And I think like we've been on a call before and I'm like, do you see that? Like that's you're like, yup, got that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, in some of these politicians, Trudeau's done this. Poilievre to a degree, but Trudeau's definitely done this where he's a lot more direct when he's speaking in French versus speaking in English, which I'm like, because then they do that for a reason. They don't want to be clipped in English, but then they go right for the jugular. And Trudeau still got clipped for speaking in French over the pandemic, for calling everyone misogynistic, for protesting his stupid rules around COVID. But like even then, that even had a hard time reaching because you had to rely on the translation. So it was, I don't know, it is interesting. I guess it's more of like a soft spot for me, but I agree in terms of the tangible aspects to it. The only thing that you can't do, or I guess supposedly can't do, is BPM if you're not bilingual, which is a kind of a bummer to some degree because I'm like, that'd be the only reason I'd want to be bilingual. So I'm like, what if I want to be prime minister one day? I can after doing this show now, I guess. But I was like, I don't know. Yeah, I would have to really brush up on it. So there is, I guess, some degree. I guess there's less value in really diving into French than there once was. The follow-up to that question was, do you think learning French is a crucial step towards elite status in Canada's ruling class?
No,
Okay.
because I, at least seeing the folks here that have a lot of power and influence, it's through business.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a successful business that employs a lot of people, you can pretty much do what you want. And basically, the business walks in, tells government what the mandate is. Government then goes, well, and then business goes, well, we could lay off, 100 people and blame it on you. And government's like, okay, let's see how we can work together. So I think the power is in business. I don't think the power is in language.
Totally. That's fair. Terry Grain comes in with a really good question. He says, I appreciate your podcast, but with the potential that Nova Scotia has, why $3.4 billion from equalization payments? Asking from an Alberta fan of the show, which is more so like why should we be getting $3.4 billion? And I'll start off with saying I don't think we should be getting it. And quite frankly, I really appreciated our premier, Tim Houston, hitting this point in an interview. He's like, we have to start being prepared for us not getting equalization payments or getting far less of it, and we need to start exploration now. And I'm like, that's the first time I've heard a premier here in Nova Scotia say anything like that, at least in terms of history. So I thought that was like a huge sign that we are understanding that we can't rely on Alberta moving forward. And I agree with that as well. We need to start relying on ourselves.
So I agree with that, and I thought the same thing. I appreciated Tim saying that, which is why I think he won the supermajority that he did, is because he's actually doing a good job. Terrible with the media, but is doing a good job governing the province. Yeah. So as I kind of mentioned before, risk adverse, a mentality that it can't happen here. The other part of it too, though, is that we've had an aging population for quite some time, because what happens with the East is that basically the young men fly out to Alberta, work their entire working life out in Alberta, earning an income, then come back East to retire. And then we bear the burden of an aging population that is now using our services, using healthcare at a higher rate. So I do understand a little bit why we would take more in equalization, because their best earning years aren't spent here. They're spent in Alberta, they're spent in Ontario, they're spent elsewhere. But yet the years when they need the most government services is when they come back. So we need to really do something to change that culture. And I think that there has been a lot of work around that, specifically to try and change the demographic of folks in Nova Scotia. And to their credit, it has worked to a degree. I think that we really need to start developing our manufacturing, developing our agriculture, developing our energy sector, our mining in this province, because we have capabilities for all of that. We have a much milder climate than, say, PEI in New Brunswick. We should be using that to farm. We should be building greenhouses all along the South Shore where we have a higher agricultural zone. So like things like that, like we have gold, we should be digging up that gold. We have copper, we have uranium, we like so many things. Like we have natural gas, like we have massive natural gas stores. So things like that just we should be taking advantage of, that we really haven't had to in the past, and people have just been okay with skating by.
Yeah,
because less risk. Right? You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. It's like, no, we need to change that mentality to let's be better. Let's dream bigger. Let's be a little bit more aggressive in our goals. And I think that I'm seeing a lot of this happen with our government. He's been criticized heavily for healthcare, but I know from, and don't get me fired for this, but basically 60,000 people came off the Need a Family Doctor registry in the past 3 months. I think that number is public now. That's incredible. That's wonderful. Our population is still growing, so we're still adding to that number. But like that's from targeted work that this government has put in. We're going for an OPOR system, which is one patient, one record, meaning that all of our health data will be in one place, which doesn't happen anywhere else in Canada. So like things like that we're actually moving on, because this government said we are going to put our focus on the healthcare. So that's not to say the place is without its flaws, but like it's actively getting better and things are actually moving. So I think that if he puts that kind of energy into other areas like resource extraction and resource development, I think we'll see good things too.
Yeah, I think, I mean, everything you shared I think was awesome, and I think people need to hear those things. And kind of going back to that vein of like what's happening in Nova Scotia. So, you know, the crime data came out, and somehow, some way, Nova Scotia is one of like the two provinces where crime didn't go up. Yeah. It's actually regressing. And I'm trying to figure out how has that happened, because back in the day, Halifax was competing, or sorry, Nova Scotia was competing with Manitoba in most crimes per capita in the country. Yeah. And it's like, what's going on? I'm seeing what's happening in Mississauga, but that's not happening here as much, from what I'm understanding. So I'm like, what is different? We are a port city. We should have more crime technically, but we don't.
Gentrification.
You think that's really it, eh?
A little bit, but I do think that there's been a lot of work by community organizations to try and build back community. I think that there was a lot of harm done back in the day, a lot of division, and I think that there's been a lot of work by community organizations specifically. I know that there's groups like Man Up. I think there's like, I'm trying to remember, it's like 902 Change Makers. Like there's like different grassroots organizations that are really trying to be supportive of community members, people at risk, people who may not have good opportunities, because we know that crime is mostly committed by people in lower socioeconomic status because they just don't have the opportunities that others do. So I think there's been some really good work that's happened to try and help people.
That's fair. I think I was just more so the question because of, I mean, a lot of gang related stuff happening in Toronto specifically, coming up through New York. And that's more so my question is like, you know, you're seeing international gang stuff happening, infiltrating into Canada and enveloping some of our bigger cities. But it feels like Halifax is like, we have our issues, don't get me wrong. There's some things that are happening, but a lot of it it's internal. It's not international drug rings happening like we're seeing in Toronto.
No, but we are seeing problems with drugs and with human trafficking is one that's not good, because we're seeing that go through our ports.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But also, like, a lot of trafficking happens where Nova Scotian girls specifically will be trafficked through to Montreal and then off to different places.
That's a good point.
So because we do have an international airport, but it's not constantly sending flights out like Toronto and like Montreal is. So a lot of times, like, people will be trafficked through Montreal, through Toronto, because of the larger airports that they have.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a part of it is our size. Part of it, like I said, is the grassroots work that's being done. Part of it is the immigration piece, where we have a little bit more of a cohesive culture in Halifax versus places like Toronto or Montreal, where there's very clear divisions. Like Mississauga is where you go for whatever community. Brampton's where you go for another community. There's a Chinese community in the middle of Toronto. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's very, very siloed. Whereas I feel like Halifax is a little more heterogeneous in the way that it's mixed up.
Very interesting. Yeah. Some people bringing in some interesting thoughts here. Mike Woods was responding to Terry's comment saying, Terry, it seems like Nova Scotians are very apathetic to just receiving equalization funds. They don't want to tell their politicians that we want to be a have province. And I think it goes back to your point of like, people also can't dream to be a have province. And that's why I actually appreciated Poilievre's interview here with Ted Battis, I think is his name. And he was just saying, there's no reason Nova Scotia there's no reason for Nova Scotia to be a have-not province. You can be a have province if you really want to put the time in and work. We can make that happen for you if you want it, which I did appreciate. And I'm like, yeah, we've talked about on this podcast already. The opportunity is there. It's just about seizing it.
Yeah. I also think that we need to see some wins in this province, because it's been a long time since we've seen a win. Aside from our hockey players.
Yeah, true. So, lots of wins in the hockey.
We got a lot of good got a lot of good hockey players coming out of Halifax and Nova Scotia in general, but I think that we need to see some big wins, and I'm hoping that some of that comes out of healthcare, because, like I said, there's some really amazing things coming out down the pipeline. I just had a presentation today, actually, with Can Health on some of the products and things that we've developed in Halifax and that we're now using to treat people with, that are like the best in the world. I think we need to be showcasing that more and really kind of cheerleading some of the amazing things that we're doing in this province and show some wins. Because I think that once we get into that winner mentality, I think that we'll actually start to see that permeate other areas too.
For sure. Rob Carlton saying, you guys got to keep this podcast going. Speaking the truth with humor. I appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it.
Trying.
Yeah. The Canadian Armed Forces use the reasons for not being bilingual or having a language to pass over a suitable candidate regularly, apparently. That's interesting.
I was in the forces for 3 years, and I had, like I said, working level French. With the forces, I found that mostly it's based off of just time served, and you can do other like leadership courses that they offer, and you know, travel to different parts, different bases, and take classes and things like that. So that will kind of get you advancement. I don't know if like I said, the language is like a huge thing, unless you're talking like elite level, like government decision making level where you have to be bilingual.
Right. Unacceptable Dale says, my trip to Montreal, the only time people spoke English was behind my back, loudly. Shred B for Dead says, AI will take care of translation for you. I'm actually surprised it doesn't translate immediately during Canadian press conferences already. Which I'm like, that's actually a fair point. That would be taking away jobs, which this government can't be doing. David F says, Trudeau shut down fisheries in Nova Scotia. He helped do so, yes. He put some pressure on different organizations that would then result in that happening, yes. Yada, yada. Shout out to you guys for trying. Thanks. Appreciate it all the more. Yeah, there's some like, you guys are awesome. You guys are great. Lots of great points being made in here. Quebec won't let a pipeline go through their province, so no more transfer payments is my position. I'm like, honestly,
You know what? I think you'll see that. I think it'll be either take the pipeline going through, because the thing is that so St. John, New Brunswick has a massive refinery that they're buying oil from overseas to then refine and then basically feed all of Atlantic Canada with the refined oil products from that one refinery. Energy East was supposed to basically feed refineries in northern Quebec as well as the refinery in St. John. That refinery is the largest refinery this side of Texas. And so when Energy East basically got kiboshed, that was a huge blow to that province. And Quebec didn't care. They didn't give a rip. So I think that exactly what you said, Quebec is the largest recipient of equalization payments in the country. Yeah, 100%. Basically say, sorry, we need to do this as a national interest. I mean, because like they were able to force a pipeline through BC based off of national interest. So what the hell? Do it with Quebec too.
right? Yeah, it's I think that's a fair point. Like if you aren't going to allow energies to go through your province, then yeah, you don't get the money. It's pretty simple, pretty easy.
Yeah.
The one thing I've been enjoying watching is, this is where like you know me, Reg, we've had our back and forths on this show, had some fun times. I'm a savage. I can be pretty bad and pretty not so nice. But what I've been seeing Donald Trump do in some of these cases, I'm like, I don't think I could do that. A boss move, but I don't think I could do that. For example, LA fires hit. Obviously stupidity on all fronts. And he says, we're not sending federal funds unless you include voter ID laws. I was like, yo, I'm like, boss move. I don't think I would have the kahunas to even pull that off. I was like, but dang, what a move.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, ugh, that one just feels bad. Like people just lost everything. Like, I don't know. I thought that one was pretty slimy, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like if Quebec has some forest fires or things like that, don't send helicopters until they accept the pipeline. Like, you know what I mean? But at the same time, you know, they don't need equalization if they don't need to help out the rest of Canada.
Right.
Why? If you're not going to be a team player, you don't get the benefits of being on the team.
I agree. 100% agree. I've been hearing notice that Michigan's trying to shut down Line 5 again. Pipeline.
I haven't seen that personally, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I got to look into that. It's great point. Thanks team. Thanks chat. Oh man, we're falling back so much on all these. Everyone getting into chat GPT, that's always fun. Someone send a peanut buster parfait to Reg's place and put a note and tell the driver that he needs a hug.
God bless. I don't know who that is, but they know me.
Unprocessed cheese.
Oh,
he knows. He knows what's up.
I love those things.
Quebec needs to frig right off. Stop in pipelines.
But you have to realize back in the day, it wasn't just Quebec; it was Ontario too.
Right.
So
that's a good point. California
now it's Quebec, but before it was Quebec and Ontario.
The friggin' East, man. Those friggin' guys. California chose to save a fish called a smelt over protecting human life and property. Yes, they need voter ID laws. Okay, so this is gonna be an interesting one, dude. I don't know too much on this one, but I'll put this out to you, Reg. Sex Edmund Thunder says, wait, Elevate Podcast. The only reason the pipeline got finished was because we gave it to the natives. They even had to tell the UN to take off. Do you know anything about that?
So basically what happened there was the government funded it all after basically the private industry was like, you know what? We're done with this. We can't afford all the delays. Time is money. Screw it. And so then our federal government came in and bought it and then worked with the native communities there to actually build it. So yeah, in a way, kind of.
True. I see what you're saying.
But at the same time, it was only because the federal government came in to dump money on everything and everyone, and then it got built.
Gotcha.
So there was a lot of communities, native communities there that profited greatly off of that pipeline.
True. It's a great point. Betty White comes in saying, this is why Trump is a billionaire. and she also followed up saying, nah, the people of California wanted ID requirements. Their elected officials didn't. And I hear that. Northern California definitely would want that. And granted, Republicans got a huge vote in California in bigger numbers they ever have before. But we're talking about LA got burnt up, which is primarily Democrat. So I think that's kind of more so Reg's point. I agree that there's been no movement on this. Voter ID laws should be a thing in the States. It's kind of crazy that they aren't. And so they've been fighting Trump on this for years. And he's like, you know what? You guys want to be jerks to me? You didn't want to listen to me. I said, clean up the friggin' brush. I said, fill your reservoirs. You didn't listen to me. So now you're going to listen now. No funding until you get voter ID laws.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I could tell he was probably like, this was so avoidable. Like, idiots. So
I still think using an emergency as a bargaining chip just feels wrong. But I will also say, so my algorithms are super confused right now. It thinks that it's so confused. It thinks that I'm like very hardcore Christian right wing.
You are.
Like, it's sending me Christian mingle stuff all the time. And one of the things that I saw that I thought was funny was basically this thing saying like, LA, modern day Sodom and Gomorrah. God burns it to the ground. Like, oh my God. I was like, yeah, this algorithm needs to be adjusted here, because like that's not what I think at all. I think this was stupidity, but not God, burning LA.
Nah, it was just it was Gavin Newsom. That's who it was. Here we go. Did I say that out loud? Whoops, my bad. All right. I can see that Danielle Smith will be the PM one day. She is a boss lady. Honestly.
Agreed.
If she wanted it, I think she could get it. Honestly.
Yeah.
I just don't know if she's not a fan of playing federal politics. That's the issue. She'd rather help her own constituents.
I respect her so much more for it, because I feel the same way. When you're like, I could be PM one day, and I was like, not a chance on this earth would I ever want to be PM of this country. Not because I'm anti-Canadian, but I'm anti-federal politics. I just hate it. I hate Ottawa. Don't like the feel or the vibe. Like, no.
But we're going back here in a couple months, dude. We're going back to Ottawa.
It's a necessary evil.
It really is. I guess that's where the parliament is. What the? Some of these comments I'm reading out of context, I'm like, I don't. Oh, here it is. Sorry. Mike Wood says, Lord, here prisoners get steak once a week and get to watch promos on New Year's Eve. Some prisons in BC, you can go horseback riding. Isn't that nice? And then he also followed that up with, I know some people who went to jail and they came back chubby. But Christian comes in with a super chat saying, from which port do most products are most products shipped in Canada? And that I'll have to have you answer that, because I don't know.
From which port?
Yeah.
So that'd be the Port of Montreal. So basically what happens is
that's
either that or the Port
point.
of Vancouver. Either Port of Montreal or Port of Vancouver, because basically what happens is that ships will come up the Northumberland Strait up through the St. Lawrence and then down into Montreal.
Right. Which that was also the crazy thing about the St. Lawrence, is when they found the German U-boats at the bottom of St. Lawrence.
Yeah.
I was like, dang, they got that far, eh? That's nuts.
Which also makes me think like that river is actually incredibly deep. Like
Yeah.
that's wild.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the whole like World War II lore around our St. Lawrence or even here in Nova Scotia with the Halifax Pier harbor. Just knowing that there were German U-boats skulking around our harbor during World War II is crazy to think about. It's very fascinating.
They had anti-submarine like cabling in the harbor connecting between the islands, because we have islands in our harbor,
Right.
and connecting to the mainland to just keep the subs out of the harbor.
So crazy. What a time, eh?
Yeah.
What a time. Tammy Robinson says, former UK PM Liz Truss was asked about Carney when he was governor of Bank of England. She said he was a disaster for UK, printed too much money, and will be terrible for Canada if he gets in. And yeah, I alluded that to, I think last week I talked about that.
Yeah, it was.
And it's like, it's funny because like when I was covering it, I still think it was newsworthy. I thought it was interesting. But the thing with Liz is like, she wasn't elected in. She just took over after Boris Johnson and then lost the election. So I do appreciate her stance and her point of view on it, but it's also, she was in for 3 months. So I'm like, it's still good to hear from someone there, but it's not like she was on a mandate that lasted over 6 years, 8 years, something like that either. So, I think there's some grain of salt to it to take there, but I do agree. The argument the left will have is like, well, he was just telling them Brexit was a bad idea and they did it anyways. And that's why they went down the hill. And it's like, okay, but he still took on the job of being the head of Bank of Canada or Bank of England. And that still happened. So I don't really know how to really give you on that one.
But I feel like also she has no skin in the game to say yay or nay to Mark Carney. So I feel like the comment would be honest, right? She has no incentive to put him down or to raise him up.
That's fair.
So she would just be kind of speaking off the cuff of like, this is my experience, limited as it was. I think he sucks. Like that would have just been, like I said, there's no incentive for her to tear him down at all. So
aside from fighting the globalists in England, baby, let's freaking go. I would not want to be in the UK right now, which is like,
oh God, no.
Which is saying something. Like Canada's bad, but at least we're not the UK.
At least we're not the UK.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's insane what's happening over there, especially when they were one of the first ones that were trying out these 15-minute cities that were being tracked by cameras.
Yep.
And then the cameras kept getting vandalized, so they stopped altogether.
Yeah.
I love that. Shout out the UK.
See, like that's the thing is like power of the people. Like we aren't like helpless when it comes to our governments. There's civil disobedience that, when directed for the right cause, there you go. It will have an effect.
Yeah, totally. Pam Lambert says, hey now. Dale Lazowski says, get energy east to Ontario and then put it on tankers. Quebec can't stop ships from going down the St. Lawrence River.
Yeah, but you lose so much. You
lose a lot more product that way, don't you?
Yeah, because you're burning it in the ships to then ship it.
Mm-hmm.
And not to mention like what's being sent is bitumen. So it's a very thick oil like substance. So it has to be refined. So basically you'd be pumping that very viscous, thick bitumen into a ship to then try and pump it back out of that again. Like it's not the ideal way of doing it.
Totally. I just saw Tammy Robinson responded to my statement saying she was only PM for 3 months, but in government for 8 to 9 years. So, and she was in finance. So she was around. I'm like, fair play. I do know she was like around for a bit. But yeah, I was just kind of like, trying to understand more so the context of where she was coming from. But I think you made a good point there, Reg. So like she doesn't have any skin in the game it's not like she's, I don't know. She's the one running against him in a leadership race or something like that. So
yeah,
there's nothing to really say. Can we talk about that for a second? Can we talk about Chrystia Freeland going full blown populist on us, or we're just going to ignore that? Holy jumping. What is she doing over there? We're going back to the grassroots because I only have Mark Holland and the rest of the freaking cabinet went with Carney. The liberal establishment's against me. I'm going to fight the power. All right, Freeland. You were the power. Gee.
What? I shouldn't make fun. I'm concerned there's something seriously wrong with Chrystia Freeland health wise, just based off of some of her very odd interactions with media. I'm like, I think you might not be well. I don't know if this is stress manifesting in like weird tics or you know what I mean? Like there's something not well with her. And like, I think for her, honestly, the best thing that she could do would be get out of politics, touch some grass,
hang with the family,
else.
What?
Yeah.
Repurchase Disney Plus, do something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And yeah, and then people are bringing it up here, and I brought it up on the show where it is like interesting. I don't know, like to add that whole populist thing, the fact that she just went and scrubbed her bio off the WEF website and just trying to like deny any involvement. We're not denying involvement, but she's trying to distance herself from the WEF is wildly interesting. And I don't know what the benefit of all of it is, because at this point she's shot herself in the foot too many times. The way her campaign started with being protested by Palestinian protesters to start off was crazy. And then also to see how that Iranian, I think he was an IRGC worker, admitted to funding a lot of these protesters in the West. There it is. We talked about how well funded they were. There was the money. Gee.
Yeah, they had an awful lot of opportunity to buy flags and buy lots of memorabilia, and it was just interesting how well organized and like I'm reading a book right now for work. It's called Impact Networks, and they basically talk about the fact that to have movements and have networks of influence, there has to be somebody whose job it is to organize those things, because without that, it's very unlikely that they'll develop into anything fruitful. So looking at how coordinated and the messaging and the memorabilia and things like that were basically on display, I was like, there has to be somebody behind this actually working it.
Yeah. Two Flip for Twist does say that, have you ever met with someone with Tourette's before? It's not her fault, but I hate her still. But yeah, involuntary twitches happen when they flare up with stress. I mean, I hear that and I get it, but there's been no talk about her having Tourette's at any point during her political career, and we haven't seen it until now.
Which, you know what, like I said, like it's not, she doesn't have to disclose her own personal health information to the rest of Canada.
Yeah. So
like if she had Tourette's, that would be fine. But it's the fact that, like you said, that flares up with stress. I think this woman is like under stupid amount of stress. Like she was probably, like I had said before she up and quit, I said it's almost like she's in an abusive relationship with Trudeau.
Yeah.
So I mean, like I said, lady needs to just take some time, repurchase her Disney Plus, and get out of politics. We don't want her there, and she's obviously, it's not good for her health.
Yeah. How do we feel about Ford being a closet liberal?
I never liked Ford from the beginning, and I was supposed to like Ford because he was a conservative. I was like, I don't.
Dude, he upsets me a lot. So I'm gonna go on record saying, hey, I showed you the photo the other day. So, I've always been a Rob Ford stan. He was the first person I ever voted for. Loved him to death. He was I would say the birth. I don't say birth, but he was kind of we started putting a little bit of populism on the scene, at least in Toronto. Because he was savage, dude. He was putting forth some great policies, cutting a lot of the mess of what the politicians were taking advantage of in Toronto, and they hated him. And the problem I had with Ford is similar to Trump. Everyone hates him because he was rocking the boat, causing a huge mess. I wouldn't say huge mess, but really causing a lot of issues for the elite in Toronto. They didn't like him, wanted to get rid of him. And it's one thing for someone to aim a gun at you. It's a whole other when you also give them the ammunition to fill the gun with. And that's what Rob Ford did, unfortunately. He had so many personal demons that they ended up just using and getting him ousted as a mayor, which was kind of crazy that he was even able to happen. But
the cocaine?
Yeah, the cocaine didn't help. That was tough. Tough times on the old cocaine. But Rob, from what a lot of reports were happening during that time was that Rob Ford and Doug Ford would get into a lot of fights behind the scenes. They disagreed on a lot of different things. And I was like, I thought that was interesting. I thought it was just kind of brotherly love, disagree, and have different, me and you, Reg, we fight sometimes. I was like, it's kind of something like that. But then seeing Doug do his thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's why Rob hated you. Oh my gosh, you guys are opposites on the political spectrum. It's crazy. And I was like, oh man. So watching him operate, I'm like, dude, this guy is straight up Trudeau in conservative clothing, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So not a fan.
Stupid hat. Just like, Canada's not for sale. I was just like, I hate this so much.
You're so cringe, bro. So cringe. Hate you. Ford is jug meat with a cap.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, gee, that's a good one. Yeah, that's kind of, that's where I'm at. And I showed you the, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, it'll be surprising to see what the outcome is of the election in Ontario.
I think he will somehow still hold on, because the option isn't great.
Yeah,
You know?
I think so too, because I think that basically people will look at it and say, oh, he fought back against the Americans, so he'll fight for us, kind of thing. I think that's what he'll spin, and I think that's what people will vote for.
Totally. Pam Lambert says Rob Ford was good for TO, and amen to that, sister. Couldn't agree more. I remember I came out here. I was fighting people in university over Rob Ford. I was a Rob Ford stan. I was like, oh, he's a cocaine addict and talking about giving oral sex to his wife, which was crazy, by the way. And I'm like, I don't care. You don't know anything about what's going on in Toronto. You stinking Haligonians. You think you know everything. You don't. He was great for the city. He made a lot of mistakes, but I'll always stand behind his policies. I thought he was fantastic. Betty White says Toronto is a mess. You have Ford and Olivia Chow. I hate it here now.
Isn't that the truth? There's an account that I follow that would be considered very racist, but it basically they dub Olivia Chow's things, and I think they're absolutely hilarious. And I would never share them because, like I said, it's a fireable offense. But it's good comedy. If you want it, go look it up on TikTok. The dubs are hilarious.
Yeah, they are something else. They are something else. Tammy Robbins says, "Yep, a Canada hat, but made in Taiwan." And Chris saying renaming of Dundas Square was being one of the most recent annoying points of BS of Olivia Chow.
I know.
Yeah, that was stupid. That will always forever be Dundas Square to me. I don't care what anyone says. It does as an hometown Toronto guy. It does kill me to see what that city's turned into. Ugh, tough times.
Yeah. I think they called it Sankofa something. Is it Sankofa Square now?
I don't give a crap what it is now. I went one in 1 year, out the other after I heard that. But yeah, I think it's something on those lines.
What I thought was interesting is like Sankofa comes from a group in Africa, which has been known for selling their own people in the slave trade. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't get how they felt that was better than Dundas, but whatever. We're out for renaming things.
It's because they weren't white. That's why we shouldn't do a live show. That was bad. Sorry, folks. I spoke out of turn on that one. All right. Yeah. Oh man, but that's how the left works, right? They just see skin color. That's more so what I was getting at. Because they're not the old white guy. That's bad. It's all of a sudden better. Which I'm like, selling people is bad no matter who you are. Sorry to say. It's wild times, man. All right, let's go. We'll get 3 more minutes to the homies. Any last burning questions, we'll answer them. Last 3 minutes here, and then we're going to bed. It's late here in Nova Scotia. And Reg is on what they call...
I'm on borrowed time right now, man.
Fever. He's on a fever. He's on a fever dream right now. He doesn't even know he's awake. Don't even want to even try to pronounce that. That's crazy. Tammy Robinson, you're running. Wait, hold up. Tammy, are you running in politics? Who are you running for? Who's the party you're running under? Want to hear this. So, I don't know. They're advocating for Tammy Robinson. Running in Perth, Ontario. Here we go. Shastri says, when do you think we'll have an election? It'll be October, 100% at this point.
October.
Yep, it's happening. Sorry, folks. It's going to happen in October. Sex Edmund Thunder says, not a question, but you guys have a new subscriber. Keep up the awesome work. Thank you, Edmund Thunder. Much love. Every subscriber means the world, y'all. It's actually kind of crazy. I was actually looking at dots on a paper one day. I was like, 50,000 dots on a paper. That's a lot of people. That's crazy that we have that many people interested in watching our stuff. It's pretty cool. You guys are awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, and to think, like this time last year we were at like what, 23?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this time last year, we were at 23,000 subs.
Yeah.
And when that was us just dropping one episode a week.
Yeah.
What a change things have had, eh? Mr. Doctor, last question of the night. He says, are you guys Team Dahlia? Or Dala? Team Dala?
Yeah.
Dang straight. Team Dala all day.
Ruby all the way.
Let's go. Ruby Tuesday. Here we go. JD says, how come Reg came back after you left for professional reasons? Ooh.
Because I switched teams and switched managers.
And he read a social media contract.
Yep, exactly.
Which was key. Betty White says, have a good night, guys. Feel better, Reg. Please feel better. All right. Well, Tammy, tell us if you end up running. We'd love to hear more and shout you out and have a conversation. You are you seem to have a lot of knowledge. Love to talk more. And Josh Reg says, October is very sad. A few more months of wokeness. Yep. And a few more months of possible UBI coming down the friggin' pipe. So
yeah.
Here we go.
We'll see. We'll see what's coming.
Yeah. We'll see. What's it going to be? Saturday we'll find out what's going on with these tariffs. So Melanie Jolie says, oh, they're great. They're doing awesome. The conversations are going great. So yeah, we'll see.
The one thing I'll say about that before we end is just, I wonder if Trump will push it out again. Like, I really felt like he gave us a Hail Mary there to say, like, listen, I'm not going to put them in on January 20th. Get your crap together, Canada. And I feel like we just kind of spit in his face over it all. I think that was really a Hail Mary given to us by Trump. And mostly because of Danielle Smith's work and probably some Kevin O'Leary and some of the other folks that went down to talk to him.
Yeah.
And I think that like the things that Jagmeet said, the things that Trudeau said, I think that we spit in his face, and I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens on February 1st. Whether those conversations are still happening between Danielle Smith and Trump, who knows? We might get another Hail Mary, but I don't think so. But it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in terms of like just it's clear now to me, clear as day, as when we were talking about it in our chat the other day, where it's become very obvious that they want this to go down.
Yep.
They want this to happen.
They need an enemy.
Yeah.
They need an enemy to unite us. And it fits Trudeau's agenda, it fits Singh's agenda. Like, Singh was just dying for a reason to not end the reign of the NDP Liberals. And now we've got one.
Yeah. 100%, man. Absolutely wild. Last statement of the night was, when will you both be accused of being Russian disinformation? That's a good question. Yeah. Once someone throws that at us, I'll know that we've made it. We haven't got there yet, though.
Exactly.
Awesome, folks. Well, you guys are so awesome. Stay strong. We love you. We're out. All right.